Så, då drar vi igång här. Välkommen allihopa. Det här är ett inspirationspass. Det kommer fokusera på Power BI idag, som är vårt verktyg där det kommer till att analysera trender och ta datadrivna beslut i våra moderna och digitala organisationer. Ska vi se här, ska jag byta slide om jag lyckas med det. Så, lite kort om oss då innan vi går in på Power BI. Vi som håller i den här dragningen är Daniel och Ian från Innofactor. Innofactor, vi är en nordisk IT-partner som jobbar främst med Microsofts teknologi. Så jag kommer att beröra lite mer om det. Innofactor, vi är ungefär 500 personer och jag och Ian utgår ifrån vårt svenska kontor eller svenska verksamhet då. Men som sagt, vi är 500 stycken på Innofactor och det som är lite speciellt med oss som vi är väldigt stolta över, det är att vi är en Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner. Och vad det innebär det? Det innebär att vi inte bara 500 anställda, utan vi har gjort avtryck i de här nordiska länderna på allt vad Microsoft levererar. Så vi täcker hela Microsoft produkterbjudande och både djupt och även över hela bredden då. Så det är någonting som vi är väldigt stolta. Och det innebär ju att, ska vi se här. Så, ursäkta. Det innebär ju att vi levererar ju inte en enskild lösning, utan oavsett om det är en affärsapplikation eller liknande så tar vi med till exempel säkerheten som är väldigt viktig i dessa tider. Den har vi med oss både vårt mindset och hur vi sätter teknologin på plats ute i era verksamheter. Så att vi är en partner att lita på oavsett vilken typ av leverans. Idag kommer vi fokusera då på Power BI. Power BI är en del i våran produktkatalog. Och med mig idag har jag Ian Morgan. Ian har inte ett riktigt svenskt namn här. Han förstår det jättebra och Ian är våran evangelist när det kommer till Power BI och skapa moderna och bra dashboards för olika typer av verksamheter. Ian kommer utföra webbinariet på engelska, men ställ gärna frågor på svenska. Jag är med här, Ian förstår svenska och så vidare. Så att vi vill bara ge en så bra leverans som möjligt. Så att som sagt, det finns inga dumma frågor och ställ dem på vilket språk ni föredrar. Ställ gärna frågorna i chatten så ska jag försöka moderera och få det här antingen under där vart de passar in eller så tar vi oss mer upp till slutet. Över till dig igen. Välkommen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you find this useful and inspirational. Please, if I'm going too fast, I think we're recording this session anyway, so you can obviously go back later and rewatch the parts. Let's start with this screen here. I'll give a quick introduction to myself, if I may. Very quickly, of course, you've heard my name. You understand that I'm an Innofactor. I'm one of the senior business consultants here that focuses in especially Power Platform, but also my passion is Power BI. My background goes back 23 years of Microsoft full stack development, working for quite a few different types of industries, predominantly marketing, manufacturing, and finance. I'm very grateful to be working here alongside some very skilled people at Innofactor. And I'm here today to give you a quick overview with some detail and some deep dive into Power BI. So I'm sure there are people in the chat today who've never seen Power BI before. There might be some that have had little experience. That's absolutely fine. We're going to have a big overview, have a showcase of a few examples, and we're going to have a look in the back end as well to see what some of the context is and how we'd arrived to get to where we were. As Daniel said, if there are any questions, feel free to write those. You can put them in English or Swedish, doesn't affect us at all. And with that said, we'll make a quick start. So to give you an overview, obviously there is lots of different products out there which can offer the same service as Power BI, but as you can see from the quadrant here from Gartner, Microsoft really stands out as the market leaders. Not to say that other products aren't good, but we do as a Microsoft partner focus in on the products, of course, from Microsoft. Enough of that one, we can move on. So Power BI itself, of course, sits within something called the Microsoft Power Platform, and I like to think of it as a family, if you like. We do have a lot of in-house expertise with the other elements of this, but today's focus, as we said, is Power BI. Okay, I always start these things. I do host something also called Dashboard in a Day, where we do go through in a lot more detail on how to actually build insights and information from Power BI. But I always start with this screen here, some useful tips and hints, just to give you a little sort of comfort value, I guess. So we have to remember that you cannot break anything in Power BI at all. It's basically a one-way traffic. So we have our source data, and that's ingested into Power BI. So whatever's in there, feel free to experiment, click, drag and drop, play with it. If you haven't downloaded the desktop version of this today, I recommend you can do that. It's completely free. Microsoft.com/Power BI, and you'll find the download link there. Another great resource for learning about Power BI, of course, apart from talking for us here at InnoFactor, of course, is looking at the Microsoft Learn. That's where I always head. You know, if there's something new or maybe I need to refresh my memory, I will always head to Microsoft Learn and pick up the information I need at least. Again, that's free. There are two of my favorite sources of data when it comes to news or product development, two YouTube channels. My favorite is called Guy in a Cube. Again, on this slide deck, you have the links to those two there. You can actually click on those and it will take you straight there. The other one is How to Power BI. He breaks it down into very easy, bite-sized, manageable information. There are things to click on. There is a great community blog post called Power BI Days. It's completely free, like I said. It's designed and content is produced by the community, which you are now a part of, and it's developed for the community. So it's very easy to follow, understand what's being talked about, and the content is searchable. So I really recommend that one there. And absolutely, we're here to help you too. You know, you've kindly joined us for our webinar today. You're very, very welcome to contact either Daniel or myself, and we can help you take the next steps in your journey of data discovery. So you can scan these QR codes that you see today. They will take you direct to our LinkedIn Insights, which will give you a bit more information about us individually and also the company we work for. Yeah, that's enough of that. So the big question is, what the hell's Power BI? Some of you might be sat there scratching your head going, I've heard this, but what does it do? So very loosely, Microsoft Power BI is a cloud-based business analytics service, simply put. It's there for collecting, analyzing, and visualizing any type of data. So if you might have a standard Excel document, it could be a SharePoint link, for example. It might even be statistical data coming from a legacy system. Power BI will have a way of connecting to that data. As I said here, it provides a platform not only to be productive and creative with digital insights, but become less dependent on data analysts. We're all familiar, I'm sure. I'm very old in this scheme of things. We have a team of people perhaps in your organization going back a few years who would be the ones pressing F5 to refresh the report for you. You'd have to wait for that to happen. Things have changed nowadays, of course. Obviously, with Microsoft's cloud solutions, you are in charge. When you open a report, that's the latest information. If you're sent a link to a report, you're always going to open the latest version. So it takes away that time reduction on waiting for that to happen, and it also gives you the, I would say, the authority to construct data yourself. That's the intent of Power BI, is a self-service tool. So we can hopefully skip past this one and have a quick look at an overview of the general architecture. Now, this might be a bit overwhelming, but this is a very simplified, hopefully, overview of how Power BI works. So sadly, without my cursor to be able to drag on the screen, so we'll start from the bottom left corner. So we have standardized data. We have files, they could be Excel, CSV, text, whatever it is. We have traditional databases, storage silos of data, SQL, that kind of thing. And we also have SharePoint lists there as a good example too. Now, this data needs to obviously be transformed and delivered to the Power BI environment for it to do what it does. So we have things like gateways. We have direct links to data in Power BI. We can have a quick look at this as an example later. We have existing files inside of Power BI that can be reused. So if someone's gone through a long process of developing digital insights for you, you can actually use that existing connection to build fresh insights in the way that works better for you, perhaps. And then, of course, we have traditional things like Visual Studio. For those who are more technical, we have Visual Studio Code where you can create data pipelines and so on. And we have something called the Power BI report server too, for those companies that might not be able to transmit their data via the cloud in any way. Banks are a very good example of that. So what happens when it gets into Power BI? Well, we can create standardized elements, things called dashboards, reports, and data sets. We have different tiers of accessibility. So we have things called premium and embedded Power BI. And these all link very seamlessly with other solutions from Microsoft. So if you have Microsoft Teams, which I'm sure most people do, you can take a Power BI report and put it straight into Teams for collaboration and insight sharing. We can also build custom applications with Power BI embedded too. So if you have a website, for example, we can actually take the embedded code from Power BI and place that directly into your website. So it's very good for visualizing data from a customer perspective. If you were looking to share statistics or events via Power BI. And how do people get access to this from a user perspective? Of course, they can take a Power BI report that's been made from Excel, to keep that example, and bring that information back into Excel if that's more comfortable for them. We can, of course, use the web browser with the Power BI service, which we will look at today too. And they can ingest the data anywhere on the go using Apple phones, Samsung, basically modern technology. So hopefully that data journey kind of makes sense. There's a lot to look at there, of course, but feel free to take a copy of this later and enjoy it when you have some free time. We can move on. So very quickly, kind of why Power BI when there's so much other choice? So here's the top level benefits and the architecture of that. So out of the box, it comes with over 300 custom and pre-built connectors. So whatever your data source, the chances are Power BI can connect to that source of data for you. Very familiar word here, Active Directory, where you obviously create the security profiles for your organization. Power BI automatically uses Active Directory to ensure that only those people who have access to data are the ones that are seeing it. So if I'm creating a report, for example, the CEO of that company should see everything. The sales manager will only see his or her team of data, and a salesperson, to give you that example, will only see their information if that's how your organization works. It can be as secure and locked down as you need it to be, or it can be as open and free as you also like. There are two types of Power BI, to give you that to start with. We have what's called the Power BI desktop, and that's where we create and author and maintain reports. And then we have the Power BI service, and that's basically for the ingestion of data. So people would log into the service and view the reports. The great and most important thing about Power BI, at least in my opinion, is creating a single source of the truth. I'm sure we're all very familiar of having multiple reports where you have 6 or 7 different answers to the same question. Now, which one do you believe? Which one's correct? Which one's out of date? Which one's completely wrong? Power BI will always give you the basic truth. If your data quality is good, which we can also help with if you have issues with data clarity and validation, once that's done with the transformation process, everything from that point is the same, to give you peace of mind. And absolutely, data, as I said, with the mobile phones, wherever you have a 4G or 3D connection anywhere, you can bring up Power BI on your phone. It's a free app, of course, just like anything else on the App Store or the iOS Store. Download Power BI, authenticate with Active Directory, and you'll have access to the same reports you do in the office or at home. So hopefully that's a quick, good overview of Power BI, how it works and what you can roughly do at a top level. Okay, so I'm just going to flick through this. I did forget to press the forwards button, which highlights all of these points. So bear with me a second. Too keen to talk, that's my problem. Okay, so what sort of technical skills and soft skills should a reasonably good Power BI developer possess? Now, this is not essential, but this is to give you some sort of inspirational guidelines, at least, to what should be expected if you're going to be successful in developing your own Power BI solution. So of course, yes, data analysis, that's I think fundamental, to have someone who's capable of understanding requirements and KPIs, that kind of thing. There is an underlying language that runs, let's call it the engine room of Power BI, called DAX. It's very, very similar to Excel formulas. And I have a few examples to show you today as well, what DAX looks like. SQL is a very common database language, standardized query language that allows you to query databases directly, and obviously allows you then to use SQL within Power BI. So if you have standard SQL solutions that are running now, you can import those into Power BI and it will do the same work for you. The most common one here is Excel. Now, I'm pretty sure that we're all very good with Excel to some degree, but to have understanding of where to store Excel documents, the best practice for not storing them on your C drive and have them somewhere more secure like SharePoint or OneDrive. And then obviously data visualization skills. You know, how do we display this information now that we have access to it? What's the most clean, efficient way of showing this? Now I have 3 good user cases to show you today. The soft skills, of course, yeah, understanding how your business operates. I think that's quite fundamental. You know, how does production work? How does our finance team operate? These sorts of things. Teamwork, you know, working collectively with people, you know, having a good rapport with people as well. It's, in my opinion, quite good. Organizational skills, absolutely. You know, you need to be very proactive and understand that this might take time and communicate that well, which we'll come to in a second. Presentation skills, absolutely. You know, apart from our webinar issues this morning, you know, I think internally our presentation skills are very good here at Ineffective. And of course, being open and honest and communicative and have the ability to talk to people at a high level. I think that's fairly important. So something just to keep in mind. Now, absolutely in the factor, certainly for myself, I'm blowing my own trumpet here, I think I possess all of them. I think it's developed over time. I used to be quite shy, but not anymore. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Okay, we can have a quick look at some examples. Now, what I have prepared today, I have 3 user cases here. Now, hopefully we did a quick analysis of the people in the call. We do have some financial people here, which is fantastic to see. We have sales, of course, which is also great. And we also include HR into this as well, just to give you a broad spectrum of opportunity. Okay. So I've created some fake companies here. You can probably tell by the name of some of these. I use my daughter's name here as well. Apparently now she's an 8-year-old CFO, but there we are. So in this example, we're looking at Bethan's needs from Morgan Advanced Materials. She is the CFO. She needs, of course, clear and accurate data. It's a very important part of her decision-making process. And currently, in this fictitious situation, she is using and depends upon Excel spreadsheets and ERP data. Quite common. These are updated by central IT once a week. So you can see the problem there already, I'm sure. Currently, in this situation, the business is experiencing a lot of issues with financial control. They are really focused on income and expenditure, of course, and she needs to keep a very close eye on the cost of goods sold and cash flow. And she'd like to obviously interact with this data too, to see how and where they can make better business decisions to get a firmer control on their financial situation. So the question is, how can Power BI help Bethan from Morgan Associates here with her problem? So I do have, hopefully this works seamlessly now. I can flick between this and Power BI. Please tell me this works. But we are still seeing my original screen. Fantastic. Let's see if I can use the Power BI embedded that's here. Yes. Yeah, perfect. It's a little smaller than I would hope. Oh, no, it's grown. Perfect. It's going better than I thought. So what do we have here? So this is a very straightforward initial screen of data. We have at the very top here, we have some standardized KPIs. None of these are, I'm sure, of any surprise to anybody in the call. We have a revenue with a goal and a target. We can see that we're actually doing quite well in terms of revenue, but the issue that they're experiencing is the next KPI with the total cost of goods sold. This is a big problem for them. That's why it's highlighting. It's very clear that that's the issue. Moving across the top, there's some basic ones again. We have the gross profit and the percentage of that, net profit and the same percentage of that too. The great thing with Power BI, of course, it's not two-dimensional reporting like pivot tables in Excel, for example. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Excel. I've been using Excel for what seems the whole of my life, but it is quite flat data. You have basic facts. Sometimes you can drill through. Yes, that's nice. But if you were to make a selection in that Excel, it wouldn't really sort of highlight the trends. It might not highlight areas of concern, that kind of thing. What we have here at Power BI, of course, is the ability to drill through, actually interact with this data. So just to give you a few very, very basic examples, we have filtration, of course. We have a nice panel on the left here, which allows us to slice and dice the data in a way that might help answer some basic questions. So as you can see here, we have a period. We have month to date at the top left here, and we have the ability to look at year to date. I'm hoping this works without me having major delays. There we go. So I've clicked on year to date there. You can see now the rest of the report has changed to reflect that selection. Nothing revolutionary here. It's basically a filter. But that's really powerful in its own right. To have that simple ability to flick between different criteria to visualize the same data in a different way is one of Power BI's leading benefits, in my opinion. What else can we do? We have filters, of course, so we can drill through and look at different entities. We have financial years in this one. Forgive me, we've got some very old dates in here because the data source is quite old. We have months as well. Basic stuff. We can actually specify that we're only interested in March, for example. If I click on this, it takes a little time because it's embedded, it's coming from a different source, and this report will now change eventually to that selection. So for the sake of speed, we will ignore that for now. See, we have the marching ants of depth. This is only because this is coming via PowerPoint. In real experience with Power BI, it's instantaneous. So yeah, bad example because March had no statistics in there to show, so I shall just go back to selecting everything for the duration. There we go. Cool. So we have different pages here as well. So we have obviously the overview that we're in now. We can have a look at the income statement. Maybe that's going to give us a little bit more breakdown of the numbers that we're seeing here. So what do we have now? We have the trends, which is one of the focuses of today's conversation. We can have a look at revenue here. Maybe you want to have an investigation into cost of goods sold, which is one of her concerns. By clicking on that within the report now, we have a breakdown. We have good representation in terms of a standard chart. Nothing surprising at all. But what we do have is some identifiers. We have some lows and highs here. So what's causing this value here? Now, if I were to click off that filter, we'd be able to see it. Everything's so slow when you embed it here on webinar, at least. Yep, great example in, there we go, finally. So yeah, we can actually pick on this point here and we get a nice little tooltip pop up. So we can see that our budget versus last year's profit is down by nearly 20.5%. So that's a concerning element. So what actually happened there in April in Q2? So these are the kind of things you can actually really pinpoint to where the issue lies, perhaps. You know, this is very unseasonal. Is there perhaps some sort of blockage in our system? Maybe there is staffing issues, maybe there is a product delay or something along those lines. So it's an opening point to start investigating why the cost of goods is down and what's affecting the financial results here. Moving on, we can have a look at the balance sheet, for example. Now this gives us a good cost breakdown versus the categories, the groups and the subgroups. Now, hopefully the financial people in the call here will, our TVs are better go on standby. Let me just fix that one very quickly. Okay, this gives us a good, like I said, a good structure versus category groups and subgroups. We can actually really hone in on which area has been causing concerns. Forgive me, I'm not a full financial authorized person. The financial people will understand this content better than me, I'm not sure of that. So maybe we're looking at non-current liabilities, for example. You know, do we have any outliers or things in here which cause concern? Or maybe we're looking at property costs, something like that. We can obviously dive in and have a look at this. We can, those KPIs reflect obviously that selection at the top here, so we can see, oh, our profit down by 1.7 million, for example, and that's causing that 20% reduction. So this is giving the CFO in this example company a fairly good overview of how are we doing in terms of our KPIs, how's our income statements looking, and how are the balance sheets comparing, and where are we not falling into target. Now, I could, of course, make this example really detailed and talk about it for hours. I don't sadly have the time for that today. Oh, I believe my screen is doing something weird. We're still showing my screen, good, cool. I can't click forwards now, which is sad. There we go, cool, fantastic. We're going to jump straight into the sales example here. This is Brian Fontana. He is the sales director. For those technical people, we all know that AdventureWorks is Microsoft's fake database, but he's managing a large sales team across multiple regions and territories, and he's using a mixture, of course, of Excel documents and a CRM system. Very common situation. He's looking obviously to make sure he's in charge of his sales performance, not just for his team, but all the available products in the various warehouses across the country. So he's trying to understand, hey, how are our products performing versus our sales versus how it happened last year and so on. He, of course, is a busy man. He doesn't have time to refresh stuff. He just needs the information as quickly as possible so he can make critical business decisions. The scope of work here was to build a sales dashboard in Power BI to answer those questions as quickly as possible. So what I've got here is something I've put together very quickly. Hopefully that's the right screen. It's gone slight lag for me. So we start with, I apologize, this has landed on the product details screen already. I need to actually open up the executive summary first. If I can get my mouse to work, it would be great. Here we go. Is that loading for you? Good. Okay, so he has an overview screen here. Again, very similar to that financial one that we looked at. We have some KPIs that matter the most to him. Obviously, we'd understand that doing a requirements analysis. We would obviously have an internal workshop, what KPIs are the most valuable. So you can see that basic stuff: revenue, total customers, total number of products, how many orders are in the system, how many have been returned, and the previous year's revenue. So you can see at a glance, we're ahead in revenue compared to last year. We've got a great number of orders, and we have some gauges just underneath that, which actually go into a bit more of a visual display versus, orders versus the target. So you can see that we're really close to the target that's been set by the sales director. We have the current month revenue versus the target. You can see that we are smashing that target. And the returns versus target. So we're slightly over in returns, but the overall picture so far is very positive. Just underneath that, we have a little bit more detail. So it's kind of like a journey of data. We have the very top level, we're coming down to a bit more detail. The third line down, we're getting even more detail here. So we have the top 3 products based on orders. So you can see that water bottle at 30 ounces are the leading product. We've had 750 orders of those. The patch kit, I'm not quite sure what that is, but yeah, again, healthy based on the actual target there of 500. And we have some, I guess this is for obviously the cycles. We have the road bottle cage, whatever that is. You can see that, you know, these are the top 3 performing products in stock. Moving across the middle, we have the same regarding categories. So we have some accessories, bikes, and clothing. You get a good overview of that there too. And the subcategory, of course. You can see how things are performing there. The last line in here, we have the revenue by quarter. So you can see that we've had a dip. What's happening there in between Q2 and Q3? You know, are we having some issues there? So maybe we can investigate that. Middle one, orders and revenue by month. Very nice to see. You've got a good comparison there. And the last one, you have a description. So that's a very good overview there in terms of the main aspects of what he's looking to keep an eye on. All in one place, very easy to read, simple to follow. And again, like the other report, if I were to click on any of these here, I will just do my best to not cause a lag. And I'm clicking on patch kit 8. So you can now notice the report has changed to reflect that selection. So now we have an overview of that particular product just by clicking on one thing. Again, you can right click, as it says on that tooltip there. You can actually drill down into that to actually see more detailed semantic layers. On the left hand side, again, this is just the way I like to build reports. You know, there's no right or wrong way in my opinion, but this is my style. I like to have all of my filtration to the left hand side so it's clear away from everything else. So we can change the location if we want to here. Currently we are in the Pacific area. We might want to check on Europe, for example. So by clicking on that, of course, now we're having the European sales here. You can see we have the same information, but based on European stock level. Let's just put that back to the beginning. What else might the salesperson or sales director need to see? He might want to do price adjustments. What happens if I increase the prices by a certain factor? So we can do that here. We can actually uplift the percentage adjustment here. And that will, of course, I won't click it because it's obviously slightly delayed today. But that would, of course, predict how much sales we will make if we were to increase the price by a certain given percentage. So they have some additional features and benefits there too. Okay, there's a deep dive. Let's have a look at the products very quickly. Hoping this is resonating with a few salespeople in the call. Bear with me whilst this pops up. There we go. Cool. So we have, again, similar KPIs along the top. We have obviously the top product, we have the profit, we have a description here now on the right hand side where we have the product name versus total orders versus total profit. So you have a very clean, very easy to follow summary of what products are performing best, which ones are most frequently ordered. We can see the weekly profit, the weekly return volume, and the total profit versus adjusted profit in three very nice, very clear, hopefully, line graphs there. And at the bottom, you might have noticed we have this really cool little news ticker of what's happening. So as orders are increasing, you can see this system's actually got pretend real-time analytics in the background. So orders are being loaded as we speak. So you can actually have an up-to-date live view of what's happening at the bottom there. So if you see a downward trend, you can jump on it really quickly and click on that and go, oh, why are our orders coming down? What's happening? Is there a product shortage, or do we not have enough staff in warehouse, or something like that? So hopefully that's a good summary there. And then of course, these are all about products and everything else. What about the customers? So I also have a customer detail page here too. Just give that a moment to load. There we go. So now we have a customer overview. So it's the same sort of style. So we have that consistency within this report. Total revenue, customers, all the KPIs are pretty similar. We have the top customer name, Mr. Maurice Chan. He buys the most products from us. You can see we have a breakdown by three of the top highest orders. Again, this is configurable. You can change this to the top 10, the top 100, whatever you need it to be. You can see that Maurice here has ordered 6 times. He has spent $12,000, I assume. Yeah, he's a valuable customer. We need to treat his orders maybe with a bit more priority, perhaps. So that's sales. Again, it's quite detailed in that sense. I'm going to ask Daniel very quickly, whilst we're in between 2 slides here. I'm going to need to be able to share my Power BI desktop in a moment, so we need to have a look at how we can solve this with the GoToWebinar. Yeah. At the moment, I'm just using Power BI embedded. Okay, we can hopefully do this. Cool. The last example I have for you today is human resources. Now, hopefully there are some people that work in that sort of sector in the call today. Yes, some of you might be laughing. John Connor, of course, being the character from a film. Cyberdyne Systems, of course, is a fictitious company from the same film. John here, he's responsible for the welfare, development, and the statistics of over 1,400 members of staff that work for Cyberdyne Systems. He, of course, and his team have a lot of valuable data regarding employees, and it's available to them. But it's split across several different systems, which can cause a lot of duplication and errors and validation problems. And as I said at the beginning, he's trying to find a single source of the truth. They don't want a complicated report. They just need something that's very easy to follow here, but they need to present that data in a meaningful way so they can focus their time on the staff, to make sure that they meet the staff's needs, to make sure that they would play with accurate data. So he would like to push all of this information into Power BI and update Power BI somehow, so it can update SharePoint so that the actual source system is always up to date with the latest information. So we have an example, of course. I've built something that we can show you how Power BI and something in the same product family as Power Platform, something called Power Apps, can work together alongside SharePoint. So that's quite a common triangle of data flow. So let's have a look at that example. Okay, welcome to their human resources portal. We have a few pretty cool functions in here, I think. So yes, they might want to just quickly ask a question regarding employee data, for example. So we have this option here to ask a question. What this does is uses something called search-driven analytics. So we'll actually sort of understand the data that it has access to. And firstly, it will actually suggest questions. As you can see there, these are completely customizable. You can make your own. If you don't specify anything, it will use, let's say, artificial intelligence to a degree to try and understand and maybe estimate the kinds of questions you might ask. But as you can see here, just like anything like Google, for example, you have a search bar. You can ask a question here. So what kind of questions could we ask? It's natural query language. So sadly, it doesn't understand Swedish yet. I have been on at Microsoft to see if there is some language support pack coming soon. They are working on a lot of updates for release wave 2, which is forecast for, I believe, the end of October this year. So fingers crossed we have a Swedish support here. Right now, I'm going to write something in English for you. So we might ask how many female, oops, if I can spell, that'd be really good. Female employees, for example. You can see it's already coming up with the answer before I even finish the question. So we have 588 female members of staff in our system. Cool, that might just be the answer they need currently for some internal marketing strategy, or it could be a satisfaction survey, which we can now look at. So how many females, let's ask a slightly more complicated question. How many females are happy with their job, for example, based on the satisfaction survey? So we have job involvement. Let's bring this one up. So currently, out of the original number of 500 and something, we only have 159 that are actually happy with their job right now, based on the latest employee satisfaction survey. So that's all very good. We might like this as, you know, a very quick way to get answers from data. I think it's a powerful tool. Yes, of course, you can ask it much more detailed questions. For the sake of this example today, I'm just keeping this fairly top level for you. We can close this window now and return to this screen here. We might want to proceed into the data. So that's what we should do now. He says, if I can actually click on things, it would be pretty good. Cool. We are loading the screen. Cool. So this is pulling fresh data from the system. So we have a very basic, as they required in their requirements analysis, a very simple report to look at. So what do we have? At the top there, we have total number of staff, 1,470 members of staff currently. 882 males, 588 females, and you've got the percentage split there. Not very PC, I guess. I guess we need to put non-binary in here as well nowadays. You can see here that based on performance evaluations or internal satisfaction surveys or one-to-ones, whatever, we've got now a split for who are due for a promotion and who are currently not eligible for a promotion as a quick KPI split. We have, forgive the order, that's my fault for not organizing this in a better way, but you can see how many people have been working and for how long they've been working. So we have 202 members of staff that have been working for 10 years or more. We have number of active workers, so we actually have a few that are currently either on sick leave or they might be on maternity leave, whatever the situation. And then we have the job levels here. Sorry, I'm actually clicking on things that shouldn't be clicked on. So we have different job levels. So this is all about internal process. It could be, you know, the type of high degree capacity. It could be scientists. It could be machine operators, whatever. And the very last one here, was there a question?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So one question here. How can AI be used to actually suggest what kind of reports / dashboard to use based on AI analyzing the data?
That's a great question. Okay, let me say this. This is, again, my personal view. AI is great. It's going to be a good tool, especially when Copilot is finally under general availability in Sweden. It isn't currently. I don't think it will help you make a decision based on, for your company at least, on what type of visualization to use. That should be quite subjective, I think, depending on the data you're playing with. What it will help you do, well, let's serve, of course, it will suggest, hey, the data that you're using here would be best represented as a line chart, for example, or a table of data. Yeah, but who knows best? Does AI know better, or do you know better? I always would recommend that these sorts of things are best done by a human being. For the sense of, hey, you have a better view of the screen, you have creativity, you have artistry within you, you know that this look and feel is better than AI will ever know, I think. Yeah, there's some great AI painting tools out there, but this is your report, this is your organizational's data. I think what it can actually help with is the creation of data validation. It can also help create things like the measures, which we'll investigate shortly. But in terms of the look and feel of a report, I think that's more of a personal feel, and maybe you have organizational policy that says you must use this type of branding or this color scheme, or maybe AI will know that and only allow you to select elements which adhere to your business's artistry policy, I guess is the right phrase. But that's a great question. Yeah, I don't believe the robots are going to take over anytime soon. There's always always a human touch, I think, to make things seamless and flow nicely and have the right aesthetics in your reporting. But that's a really good question. Thank you.
Yeah, so thinking more on what to follow up on. AI seeing values standing out, so not touch and feel, but then analyzing. I don't know if
But AI for analyzing the data itself and
Yes,
producing KPIs, that kind of thing. Yeah. Of course, it can be a time saver. I've used it quite frequently. If I'm building complex formulas, like Excel formulas, but the DAX measures in Power BI, I can put in the question. It's very simply, hey, I need a measure that's going to give me gross margin this year versus the same period last year as an English question in AI, and it will give me the DAX. I don't personally trust the validation of that yet. So it's always good to have an experienced person review that code before you just consider it okay because AI made it. It always needs someone with experience or at least an understanding of the business system and the back end to make sure that it's producing the right value. And then, of course, to validate that information too. I don't think AI will ever be able to validate business data. It depends how open your organization is to submitting personal business data into AI. I wouldn't recommend that. Not yet. You know, there's a lot of concern about things like ChatGPT, for example, and it having access to business data or sensitive data or personal data. I would not do that. That's certainly not a recommendation I would give now. But yes, of course, if you're looking for concepts or you're just asking a general question, hey, what's the best way to present this data in Power BI? By all means, try AI, have a look. There's a lot of options out there. Copilot is one, the main Microsoft version. We have Azure, OpenAI, and we have ChatGPT to have a look at. It's a starting point, of course, but I prefer human touch, to be quite honest. But that's another great addition to the question. Thank you. Where were we? Distance from the office is the last visual there, so you can see that there's a lot of people very, very close to the office, and then some that are very, very far away, just like me. I live in Flians Kommun and I come into Stockholm, so I would be in the red category, I guess. But yeah, that's a nice, easy to understand, ingestible screen of data, if that's all you're looking for from an overview perspective. But the other requirement that John had made was they need to be able to update the information in this and send that back to SharePoint. They'd like to be able to book meetings with people. They'd like to put a note against a staff's file, for example. That we can have a quick look at now. So if I manage to click on these buttons, should be good. Cool. And I have a horrible feeling it's going to be a little slow because we're pulling in a Canvas app. There we are. Perfect, there we go, great. So again, we have a similar overview. We have the total number of employees split between males and females, and then we have a list on the left-hand side here saying employees due for retirement by role, length of service, and the satisfaction survey. So this information here, of course, is pulling directly from a SharePoint site. So they're previously managing data within SharePoint, and they're trying to establish who is a priority based on factors that aren't held in SharePoint, like how long have they been working, or are they happy with their job right now, or maybe given the fact that they've been with us for 10 years and they're a certain age, maybe they should be considering retirement right now. So how do we get that information into such a way that we can actually then view the data on the Power BI screen here and send updates back to the source? So what we have on the right-hand side here is an embedded app that's been built from Power Platform that allows us to select people in here. So if we let's take Carl here, for example. So if I were to click on Carl, the app will update for that selection. It returns his employee number. And we might want to say that we want to create a meeting request for this guy. So we can say, book a meet. Oops, if I could spell today, it would be useful. Book a meeting with Carl to discuss. Yeah, I'm really not typing brilliantly today at all. I can do a lot of things well, but some things really badly. To discuss retirement, maybe. Plans. Cool. When do we want to book it for? We shall open up a calendar here and say we need to book it for 20th of September or something like that. And we can change the status on his employment right now to it's currently working, and then we can submit that information. And now what it's done, it's given us confirmation that it's sent that update for that employee to SharePoint. That's cool. But how about a link to SharePoint directly? Well, of course, I can open this up. I'm not sure it's going to share on the screen. That's the only thing I've been worried about for a little moment. Maybe you're going to have to take my word for it, but there is a SharePoint screen open here for me. Let's see if I can flick my screens over maybe. Let's see. Maybe you can scream at me, Daniel, if it appears somehow. Monitor 1, maybe. Are you seeing anything good?
Yes.
Hey, look at that. So I can know what I'm doing. But I'm going to have to look at your screen, so I can't see it on my own laptop. So Daniel, very kindly, you can scroll to the bottom. You get the latest.
I can't scroll.
You can't scroll at all. Am I scrolling?
No,
Technology is amazing. However, you can see the SharePoint screen here. But I promise, on my daughter's life, at the bottom of this list, there will be that new entry that we've just added from Power BI back into the source, which is what Power BI is reading in the first place on the screen that we've been previously looking at. So we've created this triangular flow of data. Good skills. On that note, hopefully I can find my presentation tiles again. I think we were here.
No.
It's working well. It's working so well. Hang on a moment. Let me switch my screen back. It should be. So you're seeing what I'm seeing now, I'm hoping. Wow. You can't be a Teams call where you just simply share your screen. That's my preference. Cool. How do I get access to my own screen again? Bear with me. Both screens, maybe. Are you seeing just me?
No. I still present.
Fun. It's nothing like working under pressure.
Okay, but
I would love to bring up my presentation again, because what I'd love to actually open up is Power BI Desktop, so we can actually have a look at how these systems are actually working in the background. So how are we connecting to the data?
Okay, but share your laptop screen instead.
I assume that was what I was trying to do. Screen, excuse me guys, I'm so sorry.
I think you should disconnect this.
Yeah, can I? I can't control that one, can I? Oh, my camera has crashed. Yep, camera is no longer working. Is it coming back? At least I hope somebody in the chat can at least say they can hear me. Good. Yep, it wouldn't be interesting if it wasn't full of technical issues.
Can you see if you're on mute?
I'm currently not muted. If this one is.
Okay.
Let me try this. Share my screen. Oh, wait. Yeah. Great. Fun times. How are we doing for time anyway? Let's make sure that we at least keep an eye on that one. Minutes. Wow. I can't control it. Okay. Let's see. Sharing. I don't know which one is mine.
Vi ska se, av någon anledning tappade vi ljudet. Kan ni bekräfta ifall ni kan höra oss? Ja, vi hörs igen. Ursäkta tekniskt strul här.
Okay, I'm going to change my screen personally here to this one so you can see.
Oh,
Now you can see my screen. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll go back just to give you a very, very quick. I know time is our enemy today and technical issues haven't helped. How did we get this information into Power BI in the beginning? How was it constructed? So we all remember the financial example earlier. We have in here very straightforward tables of data that have come from a direct connection either to an Excel document or from an ERP system itself. We would validate this process. We have something in here with data views. So this is a direct feed from an Excel list, for example. So we can control this just like an Excel document. So if we add a new one in, it would appear in Power BI. And I have all these screens hiding all the buttons I'd love to play with, which I can't currently change, which is fun. Okay, there we are. So we have balance sheet coming from ERP. So we talked about measures earlier. That's something I'd like to just touch on super quickly. Here's a fairly good example. You can see this button here that I've pressed. It's got this calculator, which means it's a calculated field. You can see that we've given it a straightforward name so that when we look at that in Power BI, we can then write that, let's call it Excel formula to keep things straightforward. So this is DAX code, so we're making a calculation here. I wanted very quickly, but I'm not sure we have the perfect time for it. I wanted to show how quickly it was just to generate something new from scratch, just to give you some inspiration that it isn't difficult. It can be difficult, of course, depending on what system you're connecting to. But for this example, I'm just going to start with a brand new Power BI desktop. Hopefully this goes quickly. You're seeing my splash screen, perfect. I'll promise to wrap this up in less than 60 seconds. If you're still with us, thank you for putting up with us and our technical woes this morning. Okay, perfect. We have a brand new empty Power BI desktop screen, and we simply want to get access to an existing Excel document. We'll not run through this. I go through this in more detail within our dashboard in the days. So if you haven't joined us on one of those, we have a schedule for those coming up soon. So feel free to come along. Things are a lot smoother then because we use Teams. We have a button up here, easy, Excel document or Excel workbook in this case, and it will open up all of your Excel files in one place. This is obviously my download section. I'm going to go to my documentation folder and I'm going to open up financial data. I'm going to load up a chart of accounts. So far, 2 double clicks. Power Platform has this really great buzzword, which I love, called low code, no code. So we haven't developed any code here to get access to the data. Power BI does all the hard work and the lifting work for you. So I've clicked on Excel workbook, I've double clicked twice to get to the document I want. Now we have a selection screen here. These are the tabs in my workbook. I'm interested in balance sheet, for example, and it will load a preview of that data here on the right-hand side. You see that there? Now, what we can do, if we're happy, we trust that data is accurate, we can simply press the load button and it would appear in Power BI. If we needed to change it, we would hit transform, and that's where you can add columns, add calculated fields, rename the headers, etc., etc. So if I quickly hit load, I'm going a little bit faster here. I apologize for talking quickly. That will actually do the transformation and load that information into Power BI. You can see there the load screen has appeared, and on the right-hand side here, we will see our data that's available when it's finished loading it to a new model that we saw previously with those relationship joins. Now, that's a very, very, very quick example of how to get access to information very quickly in Power BI Desktop. The thing I'd like to leave you with is the fact that you are free to download Power BI Desktop today, this afternoon. It's absolutely free. There is no restriction unless your IT department has restrictions on software you can download. Feel free to try this. Go to the Microsoft.com/Power BI, download the desktop. It can be in Swedish. This is the good thing. All the icons and the names here would all be in the operating language. Now you can see that we've got access to that balance sheet. And I can take across the account numbers, for example, drag and drop. We should end up with a little summary of data. Trust me, this would work if we weren't so up against time. There we go, account numbers, done. Now you can change this to anything you like. You can have a pie chart, for example. Oh, there we go. I think I'm running out of time. I'm so sorry. I could talk about this for days, honestly, I promise you. Again, feel free to reach out. I know Danny wants to hand off, so I will say, firstly, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for dealing with us in our technical department issues. Daniel.
Vågar vi fråga ifall du kan få tillbaka presentationen?
yeah, sorry. Oh, wow. It's a lot of fun. Let me get to the last slide for you. I'm so sorry. We do have a sense of humor here, in fact, that's the great thing. Let me do this from the current slide.
Ja, då ska vi se. Vi avrundar här. Vi har 2 minuter kvar enligt utsagt tid. Och först och främst tack för ert tålamod med teknikstrul. Det uppstår ibland även om man är förberedd. Så att det blir bara så helt enkelt. Hoppas lite måluppföljelse här. Så syftet med det här webbinariet är att inspirera, påvisa möjligheterna. Det är inte för att lära er hur ni ska gå tillväga. Det jag vill rekommendera, finner ni det här intressant, tveka inte, kontakta mig. Ian har mycket att göra, så det är bättre att ni kontaktar mig. Jag ser till att vi kan ta ett möte med er. Det här är kostnadsfritt. Det är ett sätt för oss att först och främst vinna ert förtroende, men sen att bli partner och tillsammans, vi kan teknologin och ni förstår era utmaningar, och det är där vi kan göra fantastisk innovation tillsammans. Kontakta oss för ett kostnadsfritt rådgivningsmöte, så tar vi det därifrån helt enkelt. Det kom några frågor kring AI här, vilket är intressant och på allas agenda. Vi som Microsoft-partner, vi är väldigt måna om den här dialogen också, och till exempel Copilot kommer på bred väg här inom alla produkter på Microsoft. En med säkerhet, en kan vara data governance. Vi har metoder för att hjälpa er som kunder, oavsett om det handlar om att komma igång med OpenAI eller om det handlar om att använda sitt data för att äga sitt data, kontrollera sitt data och ta beslut baserat på data. Så har vi tillvägagångssätt och metoder, så handlar om det, så ni får kontakta mig där också. I och med det igen får vi tacka för oss.
Thank you.
Vi har nämnt, och jag skrev det i chatten här, Dashboard in a Day, heldagsworkshop. Väldigt, där får man lära sig hur de här verktygen fungerar och hur ni bygger en dashboard under en dag. Tillsammans med Ian och våra kollegor. Vi kommer skicka ut ett tackmail efter det här. Som sagt, där kommer det finnas lite länkar. Och hoppas vi ses igen på närmaste rådgivningsmöten. Ha en fortsatt bra dag. Tack och hej.